A mink sits in a bare cage with everything it needs: food, water, safety, and it is quietly losing its mind. Because when scientists showed it a leather glove, the exact thing used to grab it, the one object it should fear, the mink ran straight toward it, 3 times faster than normal. Not out of courage, it was so desperate for something to happen that a threat beat nothing at all. And it isn't just mink. Ravens, elephants, orcas, the smartest animals alive start doing bizarre things the moment their world goes quiet. So here's the real question. Do wild animals actually get bored? Not restless, not sleepy, bored. That specific, gnawing, hollow feeling you'd swear was invented by Monday mornings and waiting rooms. The answer is yes, and it quietly rewrites what boredom even is, because it might be one of the sharpest survival tools evolution ever built. To see how, we have to start with what it's actually for. For a long time, scientists wouldn't even touch the word. Calling an animal bored sounded like a bedtime story, like deciding your goldfish resents Mondays. But in 2017, a scientist named Charlotte Byrne at the Royal Veterinary College in London published a paper that cracked the whole thing open, because she refused to ask the soft question. Not whether animals feel boredom exactly the way you do. She asked what boredom actually is, mechanically, and whether the machinery could be running in other brains. And she laid out how you would even catch it. A bored animal avoids monotony, struggles to stay awake with nothing to do, and acts as if time itself is dragging. Then she gathered up what animals will actually do to escape that state, and it is genuinely unsettling. Bored animals have pressed a lever over and over just to trigger a flash of painfully bright light. They have chosen food they had already learned would make them sick, purely because it was something different. They pick discomfort over sameness every single time. So boredom isn't some mild fidget, it's a pressure. And stripped all the way down, that pressure is an alarm. It's the feeling that your surroundings have stopped handing you anything new, that there is nothing left here worth learning. And it does exactly one job. It shoves you to get up, go somewhere else, and poke at the world until the world does something back. Now, think about what that means for a wild animal. Every creature alive is caught between 2 options every single second. Exploit, keep using the food, the spot, the trick you already know works. Or explore, leave the sure thing and go looking for something better. Lean too hard on exploit and you starve the day your one food source runs dry. Lean too hard on explore and you burn your whole life wandering past food you already had. So something has to break the tie. Boredom is the referee. It's the quiet voice that says, this place has nothing left to teach you, so move. An animal that can get bored is an animal that keeps mapping, keeps learning, keeps a second option alive. And that is a monstrous survival advantage. And that advantage is exactly what those mink were about to reveal, because their cage is where the whole idea gets proven. The experiment came from Rebecca Marr and Georgia Mason at the University of Guelph in Canada in 2012. They kept some mink in small, bare cages, and others in large, rich ones, with water to wade through and towers to climb. Then they offered every mink a whole menu of things. Lovely things like treats, dull things like a plain plastic object, and frightening things like that leather glove. The mink in the rich cages behaved the way you would expect. They enjoyed the treats and mostly wanted nothing to do with the scary glove. But the mink in the bare cages chased all of it, the treat, the plastic, and the terror, about 3 times faster and stared longer. They ate more, even given the exact same food. They spent their waking hours lying down, wide awake, with nowhere on earth to put their attention. And the ones who lay there the most alert, but the most idle, were the ones who lunged hardest at whatever came next. That is what a starving mind looks like when the thing it's starving for isn't food. And this isn't some quirk of a few pampered lab animals. When researchers built a deliberately monotonous world for ordinary rats and set it against a world that kept changing, the rats in the dull one behaved exactly the way Byrne's theory predicted: restless, overeager, lunging at any scrap of stimulation on offer. Pigs show it too. Wherever there is a brain flexible enough to learn, there seems to be a version of this same alarm wired in underneath. But not every animal carries it equally. The ones most prone to it are the ones with big, hungry, generalist brains. The crows and ravens, the parrots, the primates, the dolphins and orcas, the octopuses. A brain like that is fantastically expensive to run. It only pays for itself if it's fed a steady stream of novelty, new problems, new puzzles to solve. In the mountains of New Zealand, a parrot called the Kia is so relentlessly curious that it will strip the rubber trim off a parked car, piece by piece, purely for something to do. Give it a puzzle box and it cracks it. Take the puzzle away and it builds a new one out of whatever is lying around. And in the wild, that hunger is no burden at all, because the wild never runs out of problems. A raven wakes up to a fresh one every single day. The hunger and the world are matched. So what do you think happens when you take an animal built to explore an endless, shifting world and you lock it somewhere with nothing left to explore at all? It's the quiet tragedy in this whole story, and you've already seen it with your own eyes. You've seen it at the zoo, the tiger that paces the same 8 steps, turns, and walks them back for hours, wearing a groove into the concrete. The elephant that sways from side to side endlessly, rocking to music that isn't playing. The parrot that is plucked its own chest bald. Scientists have a cold, clinical name for these: stereotypies, repetitive movements with no purpose. But for a long time, nobody could agree on what they meant. One of the first people to point straight at boredom was a researcher named Francois Wemmelsfelder back in the 1980s, when suggesting an animal could be bored was almost heresy. Her argument was simple, and it stings. These animals aren't broken. They are brilliant minds with absolutely nothing to do. The pacing isn't madness. It's the exploration engine, revving with nowhere to drive. An animal trying to move through a world that has been shrunk to the size of a room. And the cost isn't only in that moment. Burns' review found something darker underneath. Chronic, inescapable boredom doesn't just feel bad. Over time, understimulation can physically erode the brain, dulling the very flexibility that made the animal clever in the first place. The cage doesn't just bore the animal. Slowly, it makes it less able to think at all. And this is exactly what the mink were trying to tell us. Remember what the bored ones did. They ran at everything, even the glove that scared them. Meagher and Mason realized that was the whole tell. A content animal is picky. A bored animal is desperate, and it will sprint at a threat just to feel one clean second of something. That desperation is the clearest fingerprint of boredom we have found in any species. And it means an empty cage isn't kind. A cage can hand an animal every physical thing it needs: food, water, warmth, safety, and still be a slow, quiet torture, because it starves the one thing that enormous brain was built to eat. Not calories, novelty, a reason to think. But now turn the whole thing around, because this is where it changes how you will watch every animal for the rest of your life. If boredom is this loud, this obvious inside a cage, then where is it out in the wild? And the strange part is, you almost never see it. Not because wild animals don't feel it, because out there, they never have to sit still inside it. The second a wild raven feels its world go flat, it does something about it. It flies somewhere new. It steals something it doesn't even need. It hides its food in 30 scattered spots, then shuffles them around just to fool the other ravens watching. Young orcas invent games that sweep through a pod like fashion. 1 year off the Pacific coast, in 1987, they started carrying dead salmon around on their heads like hats, for reasons no one has ever fully explained, until, just as suddenly, the fad passed. A bored octopus in a lab will work out how to climb out of its tank in the dark, crawl across the floor, and raid the tank next door. None of that is an accident. That is what a brilliant bored animal does with a world that isn't challenging it enough. It builds its own challenge. So boredom in the wild isn't a state an animal sinks into and gets stuck in. It's a starter pistol. It fires, the animal moves, and the feeling is gone before it can ever pile up. Which means what What we are watching in that cage was never some new sickness that captivity invented. It's an ancient survival signal with the exit welded shut. We took a feeling that evolved to send animals out into an endless world, and we gave them nowhere to go. And if any of this is starting to feel a little too familiar, it should, because you are running the exact same alarm. It is older than your species. That itch you feel at the red light, in the waiting room, in the meeting that should have been an email, that is not a personal flaw. That's the Raven's engine, idling in you. Every time you reach for your phone, the instant a moment goes slow, you are doing precisely what the bored mink did, lunging at any stimulus at all, just to make the nothing stop. The mink ran at the glove. You run at the screen. The raven hides its food to give tomorrow a puzzle. You refresh the same app you closed 4 seconds ago. The orca builds a game out of nothing. You scroll past 1,000 of them. Same ancient hunger. Same empty little answer. But here's the thing worth holding on to. Boredom was never your enemy. It's the oldest teacher any animal has ever had. The feeling that drags you up out of the comfortable rut and sends you off to learn something real. The animals that could feel it are the ones that stayed curious enough and clever enough to survive. So the next time that flat, restless nothing creeps in, you don't have to be afraid of it, and you don't have to drown it in a screen. It isn't proof that something is wrong with you. It's proof that something in you is still working. The same quiet engine that has been running in the sharpest animals alive for millions of years. It isn't asking you to escape. It's asking you to go and find something worth your attention. The wild ones were never bored of the world, only of the cage. Don't mistake one for the other.